The Counseling and Rehabilitation Department of NAPTIP is responsible for day-to-day running of the shelters where victims of violence and human trafficking are accommodated. This is indeed a very tasking job, as the agency has to shelter, feed, clothe, provide medical services and cater for all the needs of these victims. Paramount among these services is counseling, which is the very first step to full recovery. Thank you for joining us on NAPTIP On The Move. I am Emmanuel Okeke. Our package today highlights the role of counseling in the rehabilitation of victims of violence and human trafficking, as well as a recent training for counselors and victims. Don't go away.
Protection is one of the five-pronged approach employed by NAPTIP in its fight against human trafficking and violence against persons. This entails victim care and assistance, including sheltering, counseling and rehabilitation. Counseling plays a major role in ensuring the overall well-being of the victims.
Counseling victims or our children is trying to get them to a position that they will be able to open up to you. Because when they come in here, they are traumatized. And when they are traumatized, they are withdrawn. And they won't let you in. But when they are comfortable, you've given them that assurance that they can talk to you, they found you to be trustworthy, then they will open up to you. And if they cannot open up to you, which means you cannot provide any service that will be meaningful. So it will be like a guesswork. But when they open up to you, you can work with them, because the services they need, they will tell you. You are not going to determine what services or what rehabilitation services you can give to them. So what we do here is get them to that point so we can also carry out further rehabilitation services.
A listening ear is one of the qualities of a counselor.
First of all, for you to be a good counselor, you must be a good listener. You cannot be judgmental. Okay, I'm a victim of sexual abuse, and you start judging, what did you do? In your mind, if you start that, then you cannot provide the best service for this victim. And you cannot tell yourself, maybe I'm working with this victim, and you're using the technique that you're using on one particular victim to another victim. Two individuals, the way they react to issues is totally different, so you must deal with them as an individual. You have to carry yourself well, because if you don't, and you're quarrelsome, the victims will be scared to even talk to you. You don't push them away. Sometimes they can get on your nerves, but you should not push them away. You show empathy, not sympathy. I'm trying to wear that shoe that you are wearing to know how I can help you. But if you're looking at, why can your father do this to you? How can your mother do this to you? Or how can your auntie do this to you? You are removing that child from the shoe they are wearing. how do you feel? Can you tell me how you're feeling about what happened to you? Are you angry? Oh, okay, but you have the right to be angry because you're an individual. You feel that this thing done to you is wrong. Then you're empathizing with this victim. But when you don't, it's difficult to work with.
The victims at the NAPTIP shelter are trafficked victims and victims who have suffered a form of violence.
Unfortunately, we have more victims of violence against persons. It is overwhelming. And sometimes you look at, we are all human beings. If you are a parent and you feel bad when your child hurts, and you have a child in your home and you're inflicting pain on that child, I don't understand it. If you want your child to be safe, you still want this other child to be safe, because this other child that is not safe might even jeopardize the safety of your own child. And how can a father rape, sexually abuse his child, his daughter? It is happening on a daily basis. It is happening. How can somebody use a wire to beat a child? To me, it's difficult to really understand it. But I still feel that for somebody, an adult, to do that, that adult still needs psychiatric help. I still maintain spare the rod and spoil the child, but you must know the extent. You know what is discipline and what is inflicting injury and abuse on a child.
Having been a counselor for many years, Patricia Oduku shares her experience.
Whatever experience I have, it's for me to either better myself or better the lives of the people I work with. And sometimes it's frustrating, I can tell you that. Because when you see a child, you want to help that child, and you're not, the result you want to get, you're not getting it, is frustrating. And you're trying to reunite a child, you're going to the home of this child, and you're trying to let them know the consequences of whatever actions they have taken, and they're not seeing it. And somehow you are handicapped because this is their child. Yes, it's government child, but it's their child. So you need them to work with you to know that, yes, these are the things this child needs, and these are your responsibilities as parents. But just seeing them, giving them that listening ear, and like knowing that, yes, when they are in need or when they are in trouble, they always come to you. They see you as a source of strength. It's amazing. I feel good about it.
The need for NAPTIP counselors to acquire more knowledge and keep abreast with current trends in counseling informed a training at the NAPTIP shelter by Max Performance Limited. Dr. Monachim Uyanwunye, a specialist in mental health trauma and a counselor, is the lead trainer.
We're training them on different trauma-focused therapy skills. Our main focus is trauma-focused CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really helping them understand how to best help these victims of different kinds of trauma, human trafficking, abuse, any kind of sexual exploitation. And we're helping them really understand cognitively how they can help these victims change in terms of behaviors, in terms of thought process, and really do it in the context of trauma. We're also helping them learn other skills, other therapy skills. Of course, we still do supportive therapy with the victims as well, and also training the counselors in that. In addition, we also spent some time talking about caregiver burnout, which is them being exposed to so many intense experiences from their victims. How can they take care of themselves so that they are not burned out and so that they don't stop being effective in the treatment process?
She then speaks on the performance of the counselors and the victims.
I was very impressed with the NAPTIP counselors. They asked very good questions. The questions were very pointed, which means that they were very in tune with what the training was, and they really showed a desire to learn. So they have a big learning culture. That's why this training was even put in place, and I was really impressed by that. They also wanted help with some difficult cases, and that was very good in the training because we really got time to do some case studies. Their level of involvement, their empathy, and how they have a good command of building healthy boundaries with the patients. We did a few different things in evaluating the victims. So of course, one is observation, because we get to follow their schedule, we get to observe them. In addition, we also did a lot of intake interviews and assessments, meaning spending time one-on-one, just evaluating the patients and really getting to hear their story, understanding them in terms of their psychology makeup, and understanding what their presenting problem is and how we can best help them. From that, I saw many of the victims and many of the patients having the typical trauma symptoms. So you could categorize them as post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. Some of them also had some, maybe I would describe it as a distorted view of self. So how they see their self is a little bit different, which is to be expected when somebody goes through trauma.
Having trained the counselors and victims for a week, she commends NAPTIP for the initiative.
NAPTIP has done a good job in picking the right people for this job. There is a character profile you have to look for in the kind of work we do, because there's a lot of intense stories. These patients are very vulnerable, so you really have to be on the lookout of finding the right person to provide this counseling and these therapies for them. And so I commend NAPTIP for being careful about who they select, because this group of counselors have done a good job in training themselves thus far. They've also built a culture of learning, and that's why we had this training. To the victims out there, people who may not have shared their story, or people who nobody knows about your story, I just want them to know, I want you to know that, first of all, you are not alone. Other people go through this, there is help, you can always get help, but always know that no matter what it is, you are not to blame. I also want to encourage people, because sometimes we'll speak out, we'll tell one person or tell one or two people and they do nothing about it. In that case, keep speaking up. And then lastly, I always want to close up with, there is always hope. As long as you are alive and breathing and well, as long as you can hear my voice, as long as you're still around, that means there's hope.
On the impact of the training, one of the counselors and the director for counseling and rehabilitation bear their minds.
As a social worker and counselor that deals with victims of trafficking and violence against persons, we have been, being informed of the trauma that even we ourselves pass through. Before now, we see that it's the victims that have trauma, that have stress, and that we need to counsel them and treat them psychosocially. But not knowing that even we as a staff, we have such thing and we need to deal with it in order for us to be able to deal on the victim better than we have been doing. For instance, some of us hearing about the gory stories of the victims, we find out that some of us had to withdraw, in the form of pity and all that, and we are carried away with those fears, rather than just empathizing and summoning courage in order to allow us to counsel the victim the more.
Those working with these children, most times they need the counseling. And with the system we have, it's very difficult, for a counselor to tell you, no, I'm burnt out, I just can't do anything, I can't function. But yes, it happens. Because when frustration sets in, when you're not achieving what you set out to achieve, it can be very frustrating, it can lead to burnout. So this is another area that is coming up now, because the DG in her own, way of doing things has thought it necessary that when we are working with our children, that those who are taking care of them, those who are providing the care and services, also needs the same care and services. And she's really doing her best to make sure that such services are provided to the counselors. So it's one of a kind. We've never had it this way. What we normally have is, like training the trainers. But what is going on is one-on-one. Let us discuss. How do you see what you are doing? How do you find out that, no, I'm getting to that limit that is negative? How do I work with myself? How do I, approach others to help me do this? So that's what we're doing now. So it's very, very important. And coupled with, like the international aspect, what is the best practices outside? And we're bringing it back to Nigeria to make sure that we help both the victims and the counselors. So it's very, very acceptable. It's very, very important that what is happening now.
Counseling of victims of violence and trafficking is paramount for their rehabilitation. overall well-being and full integration into the society. NAPTIP is intensifying efforts to ensure that all victims are adequately sheltered and empowered to be responsible citizens of the nation.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, known as the VAP Act, aims to eliminate violence in private and public life, prohibit all forms of violence against persons, provide maximum protection and effective remedies for victims, while ensuring that offenders are adequately punished. NAPTIP implements this act, and for all victims of violence, be it domestic, physical, economic and psychological violence, female genital mutilation, incest, harmful substance attacks, rape, child abandonment, and so on. We call on you to take your destiny into your own hands by reporting to NAPTIP, and we assure you that justice will be served.
Report all cases of violence against persons to these hotlines: 0703 0000 203, 080 2255 627847. NAPTIP, ensuring a human trafficking and violence-free nation.
Our event segment brings you diverse activities of the agency geared towards ensuring a human trafficking and violence-free nation. Stay with us. Delegates from the Cross River State Government and Miss Africa Beauty Pageant Organization, led by the Senior Special Advisor to the Governor on Events and Tourism and the Head of Productions for Miss Africa, Thomas Ibeme, recently paid a courtesy visit to the Director General of NAPTIP, Danjili Akadonli, at the agency's headquarters in Abuja. The Senior Special Advisor to the Governor and the Head of Productions, Miss Africa, stated the purpose of their visit.
His Excellency the Governor of Cross River State has been able to create an injection of excitement into the Christmas festival, which is the 32-day of fun, and it's also made up of the Calabar Carnival. But right now, he has introduced the Miss Africa brand, and with our partnerships with DSTV and Cross TV and the rest of them, is that we are offering NAPTIP a window to the world, where the DSTV channel is going to be open for us, and then on the grand finale on the 27th of December, is going to be live on DSTV. So that message that you are trying to push out, the whole world is going to be watching the Miss Africa event on the 27th of December. That window is a window that we are offering NAPTIP.
Receiving the delegates, the Director General of NAPTIP spoke on the awareness campaign for Cross River State indigenes as regarding human trafficking.
Human trafficking is very endemic all over the world. It's now a global problem. For example, Cross River State girls, most of them are trafficked to Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Mali, Togo. So if we're going to carry out this massive campaign, it's not just going to be restricted in Cross River State. So you tell your governor to carry this massive campaign where your girls are, where we will go with NAPTIP as a team on a rescue mission to these countries, rescue these girls, bring them back to Cross River State to be received by your governor, and he will rehabilitate them. So whilst that is going on, we will embark on a massive awareness campaign in the whole of Cross River State that nobody will leave that place again.
The meeting was very fruitful as both parties agreed to work together in the fight against human trafficking, using the Miss Africa Beauty Pageant as an avenue for awareness. To strengthen communication skills, directors and staff from the NAPTIP headquarters as well as the zonal commands attended a workshop on internal and external communications organized by the British Council at the British High Commission in Abuja, Nigeria. Representative of the Director General of NAPTIP, the Director Legal and Prosecution, Abdurrahim Opozo Shaibu, welcomed the participants and highlighted the purpose of the training.
The importance of this training, among others, is to increase skills in developing audience insight, including data, profiles, and channels, to increase strategic targeting of communications, to increase skills in evaluating communication activities, to demonstrate quantitative and qualitative shift in attitudes towards the costs and benefits of trafficking. to refresh and condense the existing communication strategy and provide actionable plan for implementation as against the current communication strategy that is rather too verbose, academic, and complex. The training will boost NAPTIP's communication strategy to ensure implementation and ease of its usage. We wish to thank once again the British High Commission for this collaborative gesture and for the sponsorship of this training.
The facilitators, Amina Makele and Caroline Ehrman, trained the participants on internal and external effective communications in line with the agency's public enlightenment on the dangers of human trafficking and violence against persons. Training and retraining of NAPTIP staff is essential in the fight against human trafficking and violence against persons to keep abreast with current trends. In line with the 2017 ban on external migration of women by the Ghanaian government to protect them from falling victims of human trafficking and other dehumanizing practices prevalent all over the world, the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, formally handed over to the Ghana High Commission 8 Ghanaian women intercepted at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos State, by the Nigerian Immigration Service as possible victims of human trafficking. Prior to the interception, the women reportedly left Ghana and arrived Nigeria with the aim of boarding Egypt Air to Cairo, then proceed to Kurdistan, Republic of Iraq. The links to Kurdistan were reportedly made by their Ghanaian agents, who convinced them of great opportunities in Iraq. The women were unable to give traceable information about the Nigerian agents who linked them at the airport for further investigations. Representative of the Director General of NAPTIP, the Head of Operations, Lagos Zonal Command, Taiwo Wahid, handed the women to the Consular Officer of the Ghana High Commission, Hussein Adam Amandi, who was represented by the Second Secretary, David Akosowa. Representative of the Ghanaian Consular Officer, David Akosowa, expressed the Ghana High Commission's appreciation for the level of cooperation and good working relationship between NAPTIP and the Commission.
NAPTIP On the Move is co-sponsored by the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Programme, ROLAC, funded by the European Union and implemented by the British Council.
It's never a pleasure to bring you sad stories of victims, but it is necessary because it serves as a warning to all, for prevention, they say, is always better than cure.
I'm 15 years of age and I'm from Imo State. When I was 5 years old, my dad used to normally make love to me. He would always be fingering me. So he started until when I was 8. Then he started like having sex with me. So he continued, so I did not tell anyone because he would say if I tell anybody he's going to butcher me, he will flush me. Then he would tell me that if I want to continue my education, then I should do whatever he asked me to do. So I told my teacher in school, I told my friends. Then I normally used to have a diary where I used to write it down. So my twins brother, when he was checking my books, he saw it, then he read it. Then he asked me that who have I told? Then I said I did not tell anybody. Then as my daddy went to work, then I decided to leave the house. Then as I left the house, I wanted to go straight to my mommy's sister's house. Then I said, no, let me look for somebody and tell that I'm already leaving the house. Then I went to one of my mommy's friends and told her. Then she said that I should not go anywhere, that she's going to inform the police. Then she now called soldier. Then the soldier called the inspector of Karishi police station. Then they took me to the police station. They asked me to give statement. Then I wrote the statement. They said that I'm lying, that what I'm saying is not true. Then I told them that I have a book I used to write. Then they said I should go and bring the book. Then I went home, I was crying. Then I told the woman. Then she said, okay, I should sleep in the house till Saturday morning. Then on Saturday morning, they called NAPTIP. Then now brought me to shelter here. I'm thanking them for rescuing me and hearing my cry, because the way it was for me, I thought that there was no hope for me again I will not go to school again, but I thank God, and I also pray that God will bless them for answering our prayers, and I'm very grateful that I'm here today.
For more enquiries and support, or to report cases of suspected human trafficking and violence against persons, call NAPTIP hotlines on 0703 0000203 or 0800 2255 627847 or email info@naptip.gov.ng. Visit our website www.naptip.gov.ng. Follow us on our social media platforms at NAPTIP Nigeria and watch our videos on YouTube.
This is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of NAPTIP on the Move. As always, do report cases of violence against persons and human trafficking to NAPTIP. I am Emmanuel Okeke, and I must thank you for watching. Goodbye.